Welcome to The Creative Influencer, where we discuss all things creative with an emphasis on influencers. The Creative Influencer is hosted by John Pfeiffer. John is an entertainment attorney in Santa Monica, California, who represents influencers and other creatives.
This is episode 7 of the 5th season of the Creative Influencer Podcast. Today we interview Beth Rylaarsdam. Beth is a social media influencer, plus-size model, motivational speaker, a body acceptance advocate, and a Lipedema awareness spokesperson. Beth shares aspects of her secret sauce for how she went from a non-existent social media following to a very impressive one in just a few years. Stay tuned. I'm joined today by Beth Rylaarsdam. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, John. I'm really happy to be here.
So I want to set the scene. On your website, you describe yourself as a plus-size / curvy model, an Instagram influencer, a Lipedema awareness spokesperson, and a body acceptance advocate. So that's
Absolutely. That's
all
true.
A lot to unpack. And then you've gone from a very modest social media following to a really impressive social media following in a short amount of time. And I want to ask you about that.
I would say that I have gone from a non-existent social media following to just a crazy, tremendous following. I was never on social media until 2016 when I was a parent leader at my son's school. And I happened to have I had an account on Facebook from the time when my son was born, because as part of a mom's group, we had to share pictures, but I was like, that won't be me. I can look at them. You could put us in a picture, but don't ever tag us because I will never see it. And nobody needs to know that is us. And so, but as a parent leader, I had to do a performance at his school, and he's now 14. So this was in 2016, and one of the parents tagged me, and I thought, oh God, I guess I have to join the living now, because I had been, getting requests and things like that. And so needless to say, I embarked on a little Facebook journey, and I would take pictures of clouds and hearts. And I thought, oh, maybe this is going to turn into, maybe I'll make a book. And my team was like, Beth, this is not what social media is. So you got to move on. Nobody cares about hearts and clouds. At least we'd like to see a little breakfast. And so that was kind of how it began. Then I learned, for me, social media was actually a great journey, because I learned that there were women who kind of looked like me. So I live in Los Angeles. I grew up in New York. And my experience living in both of those areas was I was pretty much the only person that kind of looked like me, with curves, plus size. I've been way bigger, I've been way smaller, but I've never been, a standard, size 2 LA type person. And so I was really happy to find that there were people, just regular everyday people on social media, who actually had they were plus size. They seemed to be living, their lives. And I didn't feel like I was the only one. So for me, it's been a positive journey to see other people who I can relate to, because that's not something that I ever had, growing up. We don't see anybody, the majority of women, actually, 67% of women are a size 16 or above in the United States. And I think most people would never believe that, because we don't see them. We don't see anybody that looks like, we're the majority, but we don't see people that look like us.
Now, to put that in context, what is size 16?
So a standard size in a clothing brand Like a size large would be maybe like a size 12, 14.
Okay.
And so now if the clothing brand makes a size extra large, that's like a size 16-ish.
And 60% of all women in the United States are 16 and above?
67.
67.
67. Yeah, it's crazy. And only 18% of clothing manufactured are in those sizes.
So if you're listening, clothing manufacturers, here is a market for you.
There's a huge market, and people just need to get over themselves in pushing the agenda that everybody should and does look like a runway, a Paris, traditional runway model, or what the old Victoria's Secret, shows models look like. Most people don't look anything like that, but we would never know that because we're never shown that. We're never shown it in media. We're never shown it, even on social media. Obviously, we're making a bit of a impact a little bit. I can find somebody that looks like me, but I curate my page. And so I think that that's very important for people to curate their page. If you're a woman who's a size 18 and your page is curated by, size 2 swimsuit models, well, yeah, maybe you're going to continue to feel bad about yourself every day because you think that you're not that. And you think that that's what you're supposed to be. And really, we're all supposed to be ourselves, right? We're all supposed to be our best selves. And so that's my my part of my, platform is acceptance. And
tell me
for
about
me,
that journey. How did you get to that point?
How did I get to being acceptance?
Yes, to accepting yourself, how you are.
So I was a person who always thought you can never be too thin or too rich. I was that person. I bought into that whole lie. And I did buy into that, gee, I'm the only person that looks like this. But at some point, I guess it was, so in 2017, I was diagnosed with a condition called lipedema. And essentially, it's what it sounds like. It is swollen fat. It is an additional layer of diseased fat that is actually a connective tissue disorder that affects at least 11% of women worldwide. And there is seemingly some type of genetic component, and it typically presents itself in the classic way. It presents itself as an additional layer of adipose tissue from the waist down. So, you'll notice thicker thighs, rounder hips, more pronounced, behind. Some people have, what we traditionally have called cankles, where they're thicker around the ankle. And then in about 50% of cases, 30 to 50% of cases, there is additional involvement in the upper arms, at least. So sometimes if you see somebody who has like a cuff, like they look like they have an elastic around their wrist and then it's puffy, same thing like around the ankle, that person likely has lipedema, that woman. And it is traditionally women who are affected. It was actually something that was written about at the Mayo Clinic in 1940. And then it was kind of dropped and nobody ever knew or did anything about it. And here we are, I think we're about 12 years into some research and diagnosis in the United States. Europe is a little bit further along than we are, but and it's not something that there's no cure. It can be managed by different avenues like proper non-inflammatory eating or nutrition style for you. Everybody's got a different one, so you got to find yours. Movement is key. Anything in water is fantastic because it acts like a manual lymphatic drainage. The lymphatics are kind of impacted in a way that they don't function as well as they could because they're kind of a little bit strangled. And so some people actually have more pronounced swelling than others, but you're always wanting to try to get your, have the least amount of inflammation as possible. There's often pain associated, as well as like one of the hallmarks is bruising, easy bruising. Like, you just will get a bruise on your leg and you have no idea where did it come from or why, or, that kind of thing. And so when I was first introduced to this, I was actually diagnosed by a physical therapist who was treating me for a concussion. And I thought she was so thorough on her intake, and just didn't understand, like, why was she looking at my legs and asking me about my shape and all of this. And I'm the traditional classic pear shape, which is kind of although women's bodies take on all different shapes with lipedema still. I'm the classic shape. And so in any case, once I learned about this, I was lucky enough that we have some experts here in Los Angeles. And so I went a few months later to Dr. Emily Eicher, who at the time was the only one who was really here that was not a surgeon, because some people will go down a surgical route of having the tissue removed through a particular type of liposuction. And so anyway, I wanted to hear from somebody who didn't have any skin in the game. I just wanted a diagnosis. And she was like, yeah, is there a question? Like, I was like, well, it kind of sounded like, from everything I learned. And I think it was the first time that I realized, because for me, my whole life, I was fighting with my weight. I was fighting that I didn't look like a Victoria's Secret model. I was fighting that, if I would have just done, say I did 200 sit-ups. Well, if I would have done 220 sit-ups, then, and it was always my failing that was the issue for me. So I thought. And then it was the kind of even, with the exercise and the nutrition, I had been on every exercise and nutrition plan that there was. And, I would have some results and then not, and whatever. And this finally led me, because one of the things that they say about lipedema is that diet and exercise does not get rid of it. And so I believe there's some truth to that, because it's always going to be on your body. But I do believe that with diet and exercise, proper nutrition for your body, proper exercise for your body, I do believe that you can impact your inflammation. And I have been somebody who has done that. I was probably, I don't know what today is, but let's just go with, I was about 150 pounds heavier than I am now. And I was able, through, non-inflammatory eating for me, as well as 6 days a week in the gym, weightlifting, and some cardio as well, I was able to get from that highest weight down 220 pounds. So that was a much different look. Now, if you look at there's a picture of me in, I'm standing in a parking lot in Italy, and my shadow is on the ground. And I was basically the fitted, I was in fighting shape on that particular day. And that that shadow is exactly the same shadow that I have today, just smaller. Like, so the proportions, they stay the same. And it's kind of fascinating because you would never think that. And so, it, so, it was much different, but yet that shape, meaning, like the only thing, like when I went into the doctor's office for my diagnosis, she's like, there's no fat on your body other than lipedema. Like there's nothing you can do at this point other than that. Now, interestingly enough, so I had been living a very clean eating existence. I had been living a very, exercise conscious life for, I don't even know, at least 15 years. And when I went into that appointment, I was like, oh, well, let's see if this is not my fault. Let's see if I eat these things that I haven't eaten in 15 years. And let's see if I go 3 times instead of, 4 times or 5 times, And so I got a little loosey goosey. And I think her impression was like, you have to live, like, what this is and you have to live. So, I'm Italian, and every year on Christmas Eve, I would go with my Italian family and I would never eat what was served. I would always bring my, healthier version of it. Right. And so the first year that I was diagnosed, I, for the first time, ate the real, homemade Italian food that I had been missing for so many years. And I didn't die the next day. And I didn't feel incredibly inflamed or anything like that. But since my diagnosis, my weight has fluctuated. And probably today, I'm probably up about 25 pounds than I was. But yet I feel happier insofar as I know what is going on. I know that it's not solely my fault. I know that it is a fine line. It is a fine line to watch. And I think with that, I became accepting of the fact that I have a chronic illness that I have to constantly manage. And maybe some days I'm going to give myself grace, and some days I'm going to be 100% on it. And that's okay. That's okay. I can't beat myself up for having that kind of 80-20 kind of a life. And maybe I'm supposed, if I'm living and I'm happy, maybe I'm supposed to be at this 25 pounds up. I don't know, but I can't say that I'm not always trying to find what's the right balance, for me. So I think that was part of it. But I think as part of that, I realized, and this was something that really hit home for me during the pandemic, at the beginning of the pandemic, especially as my following grew. And I have people from all over the world in all different, walks of life. And I realized that, the one thing that we all have in common is likely that everybody has something in their life that they don't want to accept. They would like to change if they could. And some people sit and wallow about the fact like, oh, woe is me. And I'm always trying to encourage people to accept what there is, and then decide, do you want to change it? And if you do, well, now how do you go about setting out to do that?
And let's talk about how you've used your Instagram account to do that. We talked offline, and it started just from scratch. Mm-hmm. And then by the time of the pandemic, you would build it to 30,000 followers.
Right.
But now here we are 2 years later, still, on the verge of maybe they'll lift the mask mandate in Los Angeles this week. Maybe they won't.
Right.
But you're over 312,000 followers on Instagram. What did you do? What did you do to build it?
consistency is key. That I can tell you. The algorithm is not your friend. If you don't have thick skin, this is not for you. Just this morning, I was like, okay, what's happening? Like, why is there so little engagement? Why is there so little, why are there so few comments? Why are so few people seeing this? Well, I can't explain it. On any given day, there is no way for me to explain why any of that happens, because it's out of my hands. But if I was not thick-skinned, if I was not committed, today would have been a good day to give up. Like, there's, or the days that it takes 4 times to write the post, put the post through. I personally have written every single one of my posts myself, and I have posted them when I wanted, about the topic that I felt at that moment. And so there has been, mine has been purely organic from the beginning.
You have, and I want to stop you a second. You found, it's one of my favorite ones. The post is "Thick Thighs Save Lives."
Yes. So it's really funny
talk about
because
your relationship with your thighs.
So it's funny because I was never aware of this, right? But there are different parts around the world that find thick thighs to be extremely beneficial. And if you think about it, in certain areas, thick thighs really do save lives, because if you have 5 little kids that need a place to sit, and you have some big old strong thick thighs, guess what? They got a place to sit, right? I mean, who knew, right? Who knew? Because I didn't. I was taught that, God forbid, you should have thick thighs, and never realized that they were strong and they were powerful, and they carried me around, and they make a great place. When my dog comes in the car, he's a little guy, he's 13 pounds, but when he comes in the car, he has a place to sit right across my legs, and he doesn't have to have his bed there. He's happy as a clam. But this was news to me. This was a new phenomena, and I thought about it, and I thought, this is true. Or sometimes you can refer to them as these luscious thighs. Well, they're really luscious. If you're going to eat ribs, you want a succulent rib, right? I mean, so it's kind of like, oh, now there are people that know this, and I didn't know that people knew this. And then there are people who don't have any idea, right? And the other part of my platform is to get us to all, like, open our minds, like, to learn something. Like, when somebody makes a comment on my page and they say, "Oh, your thighs are amazing," and I always want to, like, get to the bottom of it. Like, how did you come up with that idea? Like, why? In some areas, I remember one time I had a massage by a Hawaiian man, and he's like, he said, and I was probably like my size now, or maybe a little smaller, but I was not at my biggest. And he's like, oh, and so I probably asked him, like, or said, oh, I can, I'm not a wimp. Don't worry about going light or whatever, And he's like, oh, I totally know. In my world, you're like a queen. So I certainly know how to, and I thought, well, that's curious, because who knew? Again, like, who knew this stuff? I didn't. But going back to thick thighs saving lives, and my, things that I like to spout about who knew. So I just never remember, and I always forget to go look it back up. But either in 2017 or 2018, the number 1 Google search by men was plus size women. Now, would anybody believe that? No, the women wouldn't believe it. Other men who are not interested wouldn't believe it. And you know, that's not to say that these men are not involved with other women, but there's you know, there's so many people who have been fed this whole, you know, you can never be too thin or too rich, right? But maybe that's not really that's not really what they feel, right? They don't, that's not really what floats their boat. And so, you know, the internet has made things, whatever, you know, so readily available that, you know, whatever. Here would have been a poor guy sitting in the middle of Kansas who's, you know, again, got that gorgeous size 2 trophy wife who, you know, won all the beauty contests there, and he's lauded for, you know, he's done so well, but yet that's not what really, you know, really spikes his interest. And so he has an avenue to go ahead and you know, because he's not going to get it looking at a, you know, Cosmopolitan magazine, you know, like, you know, or even a, you know, a different type of magazine. He's still not going to, you know, there's not going to be that. Yeah.
So one of your posts, you said that haters are part of the mix. So I want to ask you about your reaction to comments.
So I am blessed.
I was going to say, let me set the thing, then I want you to answer.
Okay.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, just so I can get a feel.
Mm-hmm.
1 is you couldn't care less about the comments, and 10 are they really, really bother you. Where are you?
Wait, 10 I don't care?
No, 10 you really care, 1 you don't care.
For me, I'm like a 2. Okay. Because I don't really care, quite honestly, because it's not about me. If you write a comment that is derogatory, if you write a comment that is even disrespectful, it's not about me. It has nothing to do with me. It has all to do with you, right? So I am actually very blessed, and I think that I somehow got myself into a unique position, which I actually want to believe that I got it. I set the tone, I think, when I first started. I did a live every single day, and it was kind of like a club. Like, it was kind of like, you know, similar people would be on, and we would talk about different topics, and so they knew that I was a regular person. I was a real person, and I'm a very open and accepting person. I love to learn about people and their differences. So I think that was helpful, and I have not been under the scrutiny of some plus size people who get like the shamer and the hater type. I really rarely get that. And when somebody says, "Oh, you need to lose weight," or "Oh, why don't you go for a walk and that'll help," and or they say, you know, something negative about thick thighs, then I'll be like, "You're right. And can you imagine having to deal with this chronic illness, lipedema?" So I always take it as a way to educate. And I have had people write me and say, "I don't know how you showed up on my For You page," or "I don't know how I got into your live," or "I don't know, whatever, but thank you, because I actually have learned something." And so, you know, whereas, you know, there are other people who get the, "Oh, you're this, oh, you're that, or you're the other thing," and they take it to heart. So for me, actually, when I talk about haters, it's actually the people who, because I know that it happens. They're the people who make some kind of a report on my account. You know, I don't ever see it. It doesn't ever come to me, but I know that somebody's, you know, was offended by, you know, that I had thick thigh, you know, that day, whatever. I'm sure the picture was, you showed the thick thighs, right? So whoever was offended by that day, or even people within my own community who don't like the fact that, hey, how is it that she can, consistently grow, consistently gain, and she can consistently be respectful to her community? How is that? And so there are people that are those kind of haters. Quite frankly, my biggest haters have been people that I know.
Really?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Through social
And
media or just in person, face to face?
No, people that I know face to face.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. And that are also that have been, within my community. It's fascinating, actually. It's fascinating. I believe that I have been, for my whole life, I have been the cheerleader for everyone. Like, I think we should all win. That's my game. And if I can do anything to help support you, I'm going to do that. And so I finally figured out that everybody's not like that. I didn't really realize that before. And I do also find it fascinating that from what I understand, in the quick rise that I have had, I find it fascinating to me that not too many people have reached out to say, how do you do it? What have you done that has made you, I've had my account for 7 years and I have 2,000 followers. How is it possible that you've done that?
Here's the chance to share the secret sauce.
The secret sauce.
Yes, it's more than consistency. What else would you attribute?
So I would say, for me, this is what really set my trajectory. Consistency, authenticity, right? Organicness. I'm never following the trend. If I ever do a trend, it's like 3 months later, and by then, people are like, ah ha ha, she's funny. Then also I used stories quite a bit. That the thing about doing the lives every day, that was huge, I believe. And then stories, at some point I realized that on stories and also on posts, that you have a certain number of tags that you can use. You can use hashtags. You can actually tag a brand or a person or a something. And I used those to get a reach. Like, in the beginning, like I was thinking today, like, oh, I'm so slacker, such a slacker, because right now I have just been using, like, if I do a story, I may have just one hashtag, but I used to do like 10 hashtags, whether I let you see them or not. I used to have them all there. And so I think that one of the things that I have learned with Instagram is that they want you to use as many of the tools that they put out there. So, like, for instance, now in a story, I will make sure that I use something to do with a filter, something to do with I generally do not have, my pictures are not photoshopped or, airbrushed or even filtered. But like, it's more like a funny filter, like I'll put the one with the nose on it, or, or hearts, or something that you can tell is there, but I'm not altering
clouds. There's a theme here. Hearts and clouds.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, and then, now they have music. So I try to always put music on something. And it's, even if I'm posting a positive quote, right? I always make sure that I tag the person that I am, it's connected to. I try to put a hashtag that says, kind of gives a summary about what that thing is about. I try to put some kind of an emoji or a GIF in it. And so it has, like, it usually has at least 5 different elements, and that takes time. It takes time. Like, people do not realize how long it takes to do these things. and yeah, and just, repetitively doing that. But I realized today, like, I have been a slacker on, like, I haven't been putting 10 hashtags, like, and I'm thinking, well, what happens? What will happen to my account if I go back to doing a live every day and putting hashtags like crazy on everything? Let me try it and let's see what happens. It'll be interesting because I'm going to get back. I think in March, I'm going to see what happens if I do that for all of March.
So what are you working on now? Do you have a pet project you're working on now?
So I am getting myself out there more now. I am actually going to be a speaker at this year's Lipedema convention. We're going to be back in public in person this year. So in April, I'm going to be speaking at that as one of the presenters. So I'm very excited about that. I am going to start being part of Everybody Deserves Love is a charity that I I volunteer for. And we're going to start a kind of a self-love course, and I'm going to be involved with that. So I'm excited about that as well. I'm definitely, I'm building out my website and really trying to kind of refocus and get my my brand aligned with what I've been doing and with what my expertise has been. Now, before my son came along, I was in human resources and recruiting and employment. So I have an affinity for that kind of thing as well. And I think maybe there might be some little workshops or something like that would be helpful to people now as we're kind of regrouping, right? In addition, I'm starting to do consultations for people who are interested in a little type of coaching. Like, let me, how do you come to that, Beth? How do you start accepting yourself? That kind of thing. And then also specifically for women with lipedema, how to navigate, what do I do now that I've been diagnosed? How do I, or I think I might, and then back in the day, so my degree is in marketing, business administration marketing. My minor was in advertising and my concentration was in fashion. So really this whole thing now is really come full circle, right? And I used to do image consulting back in the day and help people. Actually, I had a lot of male clients, which is kind of interesting. But I used to help people figure out what their best colors were, and for women, how to do their makeup that was, not like you just stepped off of a runway, but an everyday type of a look that was going to be achievable, and to, create a wardrobe that makes you feel great. And so that's going to be something else that I'm going to start getting back into as well. Of course, naturally, working with more brands is, currently on the table. And, I'm trying to focus with more self-care companies. I've started this year a collaboration with F45 Fitness, which is a functional fitness and a HIIT program that is nationwide. I think worldwide even. But I'm connected here with a little, group that has about 4 locations in the Valley. So that's been fantastic for me, because I realized during this pandemic that self-care for me has to involve people, has to involve others. Like, it's not just me standing and doing my weight workout by myself. That does nothing for me. So
I think a lot of people discovered that.
Yeah, there are some people who just love those, like those new mirror workouts where you can do it tells you what to do and
Right.
all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, but I'm still standing there by myself. And I could go to the gym and never talk to a person, I don't even ever have to talk to a person, but I just feel like it's like the greater good or something like that,
And there's a certain energy There's a
Yeah,
certain
yeah,
energy.
yeah.
So where can people find you on the internet?
So my website is thecurvygirlbeth.com. And across socials, so I've got Instagram as my main platform, and TikTok, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, YouTube. Those are all at Curvygirlbeth. Curvygirlbeth.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much, John. Really, I really appreciate you having me on, and thanks so much. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
That's it for this time. If you enjoyed our podcast, please write a review on iTunes and tell your friends to subscribe. If you have any questions about influencers or suggestions for future episodes, email them to John at Pfeiffer@pfeifferlaw.com. Thank you for listening.